Perceive ye not that whatsoever goeth into the man, it cannot defile him, because it's not in his heart by the way. Notice the heart material there. I didn't notice that before. And God considered their works, because they sought him with a whole heart. There's the heart material there. And he raised up them and teach right to guide them in the way of his heart. Heart, 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 heart. Heart, 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 heart. Here too. Because it goeth not into his heart, but into his belly, and out the toilet drain. Thus he said, making, so Mark goes further, making all foods clean. And that's what Peter learns in Acts, and that's what Paul teaches in 1 Corinthians. For me, there are no forbidden things. Okay, there's the food sacrificed to idols, but Paul says in 1 Corinthians 8, I'll read you 1 Corinthians 8, I think it's really incredible. I read it once, but I'll read it again. This was probably worth taking 2 periods on, or maybe it wasn't, but let's look at this 1 Corinthians 8. Now about things sacrificed to idols. Starts off right there. Where is things sacrificed to idols first mentioned? James instructions to oversee his community. Acts 15, 21 and 26. You want me to show it to you? After, this is why these are all interconnected. Everything is interconnected. Look at Acts 15. And certain ones, some, there are the certain ones of the scribes of the Pharisees, came down from Judea, not from Jerusalem, but from Judea, teaching the brothers that unless you were circumcised according to the custom of Moses, there's the party of the circumcision, you could not be saved, the James party. So after an uproar had occurred, Barnabas, and with much discussion, appointed Paul and Barnabas and certain others, and there it is, to go up to the apostles and elders in Jerusalem. Even the elders are here. I didn't even notice that one before. You just keep on popping new and new parallels. You know, it just bounces back and forth. You begin to get crazy, I admit. Eisenman's crazy. Yeah, it does make you crazy. You know, you see every word, you see something, and you don't know if it's a charged word or just an accident. But there's the elders there. And being set, see, if you read it out loud, you see it. If you just read it yourself, you often don't. And they go down from Phoenicia and Samaria and cause great joy. And then come to Jerusalem. They were welcomed gladly by the church and all the apostles. There's the elders again. And they revealed all that God had done for them. And there were certain now ones again, here the certain ones, from the sect of the Pharisees who believed, who rose up and said it's only right to circumcise, blah, 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 blah. And then the elders repeat it again. And then Peter makes his speech. Then James makes his speech. By the way, in line 16 of James's speech, and these things I will return and will build up the tabernacle of David, which is fallen, and will build up the ruins, and I will set it up. And then we're talking about seeking out the Lord here. Go in the Damascus document here. It's all in the Damascus document, column 7. And they who were steadfast escaped to the Lord, the land of the north. As God said, I will exile the tabernacle of your king and the bases of your statues from my tent in Damascus. The books of the Torah, these are the tabernacle of the king. As he said, I will raise up the tabernacle of David, which is fallen. Exactly the same material here in the seventh column of the Damascus document. And then it goes on to, and then it says, in the base of the statues there, the books of the prophet, whose words Israel despised, and the star is the interpreter of the law, came to Damascus, as it is written, a star shall go forth from Jacob, and a scepter to rule the world, the star of prophecy, and so on and so forth. Let me see if I can show you the falling into the pit material here. Actually, I think it's in, or cursing the ones who are sons of the pit. Here's one, column 6. And they are to do according to the precise letter of the Torah in the era of wickedness, to separate from the sons of the pit, to keep away from, the same as we'll see in James's directive, lehinazar, based on the root NZR, Nazarite usage, keeping away from, to keep away from, and we're going to have this now in James's directive, but there's the sons of the pit, from the riches of the temple and robbing the poor, of his people, and making widows their spoil, and murdering orphans, but rather to separate, but here it is, separate between polluted and pure, distinguish between holy and profane. Just the opposite of what Peter learns in Acts 15. Just the opposite of the sense here. 180 degrees opposite. Well, I mean, every page is full of it. And then it says, to keep the day of the Sabbath according to the precise letter, and the festivals, and the day of fasting. Paul heaps of use, as we know, on the festivals. According to the commandment of those entering the new covenant in the land of Damascus, to set up the holy things according to their precise specifications, to love each brother as himself, the royal law of Scripture, according to James, which Paul applies to paying taxes to Rome. In Romans 13, it says you should love your neighbor as yourself, therefore you should pay taxes to the Roman authorities. That is really like a very, it's not something that in Palestinian environment would go down very well, that the love command was applied to loving the Roman authorities. Insofar as the whole thing was the tax issue in Palestine, causing war after war after war. Anyway, forget that. So let's go back here to Acts 15. So then we have the time, and finally we have seeking out the Lord. We'll find, by the way, that we have this idea of seeking the Lord, and they sought Him with a whole heart. They were seeking the Lord with a whole heart in the Damascus document, and later on in that column 7 we're going to hear about the Doresh HaTorah, the seeker of the Torah, which seems to be another name for the righteous teacher. Connected to all these prophecies in column 7 that I just told you about. Anyway, this is very complex material. I do it in my New Testament code in great detail, not quickly like here in the lecture. Anyway, and the Gentiles on whom my name has been called, saith the Lord, who is doing these things, all His works are known to God from eternity. Therefore I judge, James talking, I rule. We're not to trouble those who turn to God from the Gentiles, but to write to them to keep themselves from pollutions of the idols, fornications, strangled things, and blood. And then later on he deputizes some people to take this down in a letter. It says here, line 29, therefore, it is good for you to abstain from things sacrificed to idols, blood, strangled things, and fornications. That's line 29. And then in Acts 21, when Paul comes up to Jerusalem and has his last confrontation with James, remember, line 25, he says to Paul, those of the Gentiles we have written, judging that they observe no such thing, only to keep themselves from things sacrificed